Welcome to our first webinar in the 2015 series on urban resilience and adaptation at COP21. My name is Evgenia Mitroliou from the Resilient Cities team at the ICLEI World Secretariat in Bonn, Germany, and I will be hosting this webinar today. First of all, I would like to inform you that we keep all participants muted for the duration of the session to minimize background noise. If you have a question or experience technical problems, please send us a message in the question chat box. For those of you who don't know about us, ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability is an international membership organization for local governments around the world with over 1,000 members in 86 countries. We promote local action for global sustainability and support cities from our global, regional, and country offices with targeted programs and events. Every year, ICLEI convenes the annual Global Forum on Urban Resilience and Adaptation to Climate Change, widely known as the Resilient Cities Congress. Next year, the Resilient Cities Congress will take place on the 6th to 8th of July. Our webinars focus on a selection of key themes presented by international experts, which bridge conversations initiated at the Congress last year with new ideas, directions, and innovations in the run-up to Resilient Cities 2016. In today's webinar, we will discuss the urban resilience agenda at the upcoming climate conference in Paris, COP21, which starts next Monday, 30th of November, and will last until the 11th of December, as many of you already know. If successful, this historic meeting will establish the first legally binding global climate agreement with the aim of keeping global warming below 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels. Today, we will focus on why it is important to talk about resilience and adaptation at this COP, and what would be a positive outcome from the negotiations and the several side discussions and launches for cities. Today's agenda includes 2 presentations lasting approximately 30 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A. Patricia Purcell will give us the global perspective on resilience at COP21 and discuss the expected outcomes and commitments for urban resilience from Paris. Antoine Faye will then introduce us the Dakar Resilience Plan ahead and beyond the Paris negotiations. You can type in your questions during the presentations and we will read them out at the end of the session. When typing in your questions, please indicate which speaker you're addressing your question to, and if you like, the name of your organization. So to get things started, I would like to introduce to you my colleague Yunus Arikan, who is the head of global policy and advocacy here at ICLEI World Secretariat. Yunus has more than 12 years of experience in the field of global climate change policy and advocacy. Between 2009 and 2012, he held ICLEI's Cities Climate Center, where he advanced and coordinated ICLEI's work on climate mitigation. Since 2013, he heads ICLEI's policy and advocacy work at UN bodies and multilateral agreements. Today, he will introduce us to the topic and discuss the significance and aim of local and subnational governments at COP21 in achieving an inclusive and ambitious agreement. Yunus, I will hand it over to you now. Hello? Yunus, if you can unmute yourself. Thank you very much.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for the kind introduction, Evgenia. It's a great pleasure and honor to join this webinar. I also would like to thank our colleagues, Patricia and Antoine, for joining this effort of ICLEI. I would be basically trying to share with you how the 2 weeks of the Conference of Parties in Paris will flow, in particular from the perspectives of the local and subnational governments. In this sense, we can already start by indicating that we all know that multilateral environmental agreements are negotiated among parties, which are the national governments. Observers, which are mainly defined in the Agenda 21, which are the 9 major groups, have been participating in these processes in terms of sharing their views, providing comments, and also particularly helping the implementation. And local and subnational governments have been one of those since the beginning, 1995. And this obviously, one of the main difference or difficulties of the climate conference of parties in Paris is the scale of the activities that we will all be engaged. It's there because of the scope of the conference. There are numerous type of events, and it's really not so easy to understand what is happening where. So this slide gives you a basic understanding. In most general terms, the main negotiations, which is the national governments meet and work on special groups, are taking place in the blue zone. As you can see the map here, the blue zone is a place where mainly negotiations focused experts or diplomats have access. We as observers also have specific access because we are organizing side events, we are participating in the discussions, but this year's unique opportunity is that the French government has created a so-called green zone just immediately next to the blue zone, which is hosting a number of side events and which is free to access without necessary for accreditation through the UN system. This has been practiced in previous years, but Paris is the one that has been the most widely organized and the closest into the negotiations area. Here you can see a small corner. This is the gallery, which is mainly the business area where the private sector experts and companies are also organizing their own events. So if we look at the 2 weeks of Paris, we have at the core of our events our Cities and Regions Pavilion, which is taking place from 1st of December to the 11th of December. It is in the green zone. It will be consisting of series of events. This will be mainly the place where local and subnational governments and partners share their best practices and especially provide their inputs also, in particular, how to advance the global process through the new initiative called Transformative Actions Program. During these 2 weeks, a key event is the 4th of Summit at the City Hall. This is the climate summit for local leaders, which will be the largest gathering of local and subnational governments, and the results will be conveyed to the UNFCCC both through various events, but also through the activities of the pavilion as well. So other than while this is the core, we have the networks having their own side events in the city of Paris. Inside the blue zone, we have two different types of events. The one is on regular interventions in the negotiations, side events, and official side events, and there are some events of the University Secretariat like Momentum for Change. This has been the practice for over a lot of years. But in this year's COP, one of the biggest differentiation is a process called Lima Paris Action Agenda. This was kicked off after the conclusion of Lima Summit last year. It was an initiative of the French and the Peruvian government, UN Secretary General's Office, and UN Climate Change Secretariat. It consists of a number of series of thematic focus. One of them is citizens of nationals, but there will be a specific focus on resilience, and I think my colleague Patricia will go through the details of that. And during these 2 weeks, there will be some other events in Paris. But as you know, due to the security, some of those events are cancelled. Just to conclude, we are not going to Paris just to showcase, of course. We want to see a robust and then how we define as inclusive and ambitious climate regime. In terms of our positions in the past couple of years, what we have seen that the inclusiveness part of the expected outcome from Paris is relatively getting better. We have a special paragraph for cities and subnational governments, and it also recognizes the non-state actors. But this paragraph really is giving the hope that the future implementation of climate regime will be engaging all actors of the society. In terms of processes mechanisms, there is a negotiation process called Workstream 2, and here it's not that much bright because the provisions that refer to our engagement after Paris is still bracketed, which means that if this agreement does not contain these paragraphs, our engagement may be limited compared to the past couple of years. There is another part of the inclusiveness is that for the first time when the national governments have submitted their contributions, intended national development, national determined contributions, more than 50% of those documents, national commitments, have some sort of an action at the local and subnational level, varying from developed countries to developing countries. However, the biggest weakness for us at the moment is that there is not a very good clarity on the ambitious part of the section of the agreement. It's not clear whether there will be a strong goal on mitigation, which we mean by carbon neutrality or 100% renewables by the latest by 2015. We don't know how they will formulate a goal on adaptation, and one of the most important things is that we don't know what will be the regime for a loss and damage. This is particularly the case because we all know that the current national commitments are far away from reaching the goal to keep the global warming below 2 degrees. So the assessment of the success of the Paris will be dependent on these parameters, how inclusive and how ambitious from our point of view. The last but not least, in terms of our expectations from Paris, we are not just looking at this year's event, but we are talking about around 8 years of mobilization. And the one thing that is for sure, whatever the result of Paris, local governments have been advocating that any climate action should recognize, engage, and empower local and subnational governments. And there is one reality is that this notion is now put. We'll hope that this implementation will be governed by the new regime. The last page is the links, and you can download this when PowerPoint is uploaded. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I wish you the best for the webinar, and we're ready for any question and answer afterwards.
Thank you, Yunus, for the excellent introduction. Now, allow me to introduce our first presenter, Patricia, who is the Senior Strategic and Partnerships Advisor at the UN Habitat, based in the Nairobi headquarters. Patricia joined UN Habitat in 2013 and is currently focused on the agency's Cities Resilience Profiling Program. Before that, she was the Urban Technical and Strategic Advisor at UN ICLEI in Geneva. Prior to joining the UN, Patricia worked with a private company in London and was a financial journalist with a focus on energy, climate finance, and trade. Today, Patricia will introduce the Lima Paris Action Agenda, a joint initiative that aims to accelerate climate action pre-2020 and beyond. She will tell us what to expect from this new coalition and discuss other urban resilience relevant outcomes from Paris, including expected outcomes from the Medellin collaboration on urban resilience sessions and side events. Patricia, go ahead when you're ready. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you as well.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. I don't know if people can see my slides or not.
Yes, they can.
Perfect. Okay, now I see it as well. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, first of all, to ICLEI for hosting this important discussion. I think it's really helpful for everyone to understand as we go into COP21 what it's about and how local governments are featuring in these discussions, and also why resilience is quite high on the agenda. So thanks again for organizing this, and many thanks for inviting UN Habitat and myself to participate. So I guess what I wanted to talk about today is really just discussing, building what Yunus is very helpful setting the scene, why urban resilience is a major factor of COP21, and then review some of the urban resilience sessions and side events that we're doing in partnership with our partners like ICLEI and others, and I'll get into who those others are as well. So the next slide. Do I have control over the slides? I'm not sure. Or is it you there?
I have the control for the slides. I will move this right away. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thanks. Okay. So, yeah. So just a bit of background first. We're talking about this Medellin collaboration on urban resilience, named so because it was launched during the World Urban Forum in April 2014 in Medellin, Colombia. I don't know how well you all can see the logos, but it's UN Habitat, Rockefeller Foundation, UNISDR, 100 Resilient Cities of the Rockefeller Foundation, C40, the World Bank, GFDRR, ICLEI, the Inter-American Development Bank, and our newest partner, the Cities Alliance. So we've estimated that we collectively work in over 2,000 cities globally and invest about 2 billion annually in urban resilience. And I'll come back to sort of why these figures are important in the context of the expected outcomes at local level from COP21. Next slide, please. So just a quick sort of snapshot of what we mean when we talk about resilience. These are just some of the different definitions from some of our partners and the IPCC, of course, being relevant in the context of climate change. Regardless of how the definitions are phrased and the different types of words that are used, definitely a common denominator amongst all these partners in our collaboration is that we're looking at how building resilience to climate change can also help to improve other conditions that enable a city to function and really service and improve the lives and livelihoods of particularly the poor and vulnerable communities. This COP21 is, of course, particularly important in making these connections about the various dimensions of resilience, as we're just coming off of the adoption of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction in March of this year, and more recently the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, which makes an explicit reference several times to resilience, but also has a particular goal, Goal 11, that explicitly emphasizes building resilience in urban areas. And of course, Sustainable Development Goals, as the predecessor Millennium Development Goals, have really an overarching focus of eradicating global poverty and extreme poverty. So it's quite important that that this subject of resilience and urban resilience in particular, at a time when most of the world's population live in urban areas and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future, certainly throughout the middle of this century, it's important that we're making these connections and that COP21 has recognized this focus. And I'll go a bit more into some examples of how that focus is being recognized in some of the initiatives that are being led from the government of France and the Secretary General's office and partners towards COP21. Next slide, please. The next one, please. Thank you. Okay, so just, sorry, back up one more. Yeah, so just sort of building on this this concept of resilience and what it means to be resilient, to build resilience in one area, such as to the threats of climate change, but also using those interventions and those investments to make improvements in other areas and to be more prepared. It's ultimately resilience, really, when we talk about this, as an opportunity to not just prepare, improve, but in some cases also transform. And again, this is really, I think a critical point that you hear many people talking about in the context of rapid urbanization, which is happening mostly in areas that are least equipped to handle the pace of growth, the service delivery that they need to provide to their people, to their communities, the potential negative impact that poor development patterns and unplanned urban growth can have on the climate. These are all very, important elements to consider. So that's why we sort of take this this holistic view of resilience and try to make it, not just about learning from the past, but also about, transforming for a better future and the opportunities that exist for those that are experiencing the fastest pace of growth, not to just not make the same mistakes that we've all made in the developed economies, but in fact do even better than we have done. Embrace technologies and new ways of development that we haven't had the opportunity to do so. Okay, next slide, please. So why talk about resilience at COP21? I mean, I think all of the reasons I've just articulated. Resilience has become an overarching theme to define not just how the process of disaster risk reduction, it's disaster risk reduction toward resilience is the phrasing that we're hearing coming out of the Sendai Framework, for example, which was which was, quite a progress. If you looked at the previous Hyogo framework for action, the Sendai framework really captures a lot more of these elements of resilience. Likewise, again, we're seeing this in the Sustainable Development Goals, explicit references to resilience and explicit references to urban resilience. So it only follows logic that as we go into what we hope will be an ambitious global agreement on climate change this year, that this emphasis on resilience and recognition of cities and subnational governments and their role in achieving resilience and implementing the targets and goals of all of these frameworks, that this would be an ideal form and indeed a necessary forum to discuss this. Next slide, please. So, of course, I've covered some of this already, but we have now over 50% of the global population in urban areas, 60% of this expected to be living in urban areas by 2030, up to 75% of the world's population in urban areas by 2050. Trillions of dollars of investment in infrastructure will be needed to accommodate this new urban generation. And again, most growth in cities is where there's the potential to address multiple socioeconomic and environmental challenges simultaneously. So what resilience really emphasizes, and a lot of the tools and the diagnostics and the programs and initiatives that all of these partners in the collaboration are fostering, are really about helping cities to identify those areas for intervention where they can make a positive influence in one area, but will simultaneously address other challenges. Next slide, please. So again, we already have a very strong recognition of local governments and cities and urban growth already articulated in two of the three major global frameworks that have come out of 2015 so far, the Sendai framework, the Sustainable Development Goals, and now we're hoping COP21. LPAA stands for the Lima Paris Action Agenda, which I'll talk a little bit more about now, and Yunus referred to earlier, and A2R, which is another resilience agenda coming out of the partners in Secretary General's office towards COP, not explicitly urban in focus, but definitely has some threads there that are relevant. A2R is anticipate, absorb, and reshape. That's what that stands for. Next slide, please. Okay. So I'll just pause here for a moment and talk a little bit about the Lima Paris Action Agenda. As Yunus had mentioned, this is a coalition really led by the host country and also the host city, the government of France and the city of Paris, and many different actors involved in across the sphere of development, and in some cases even humanitarian assistance, civil society groups, city networks, UN agencies, foundations, development banks, a multitude of actors have been consulted in this process over quite some period of time now, particularly over the past 7 to 8 months, where it's been clear that there needs to be a focus on local governments and ambitions and for their role in the delivery of the commitments that will come out of COP21, but also from the other commitments we've already discussed so today out of disaster risk reduction and sustainable development. One of the wonderful things that the LPA process has afforded is to be able to take stock of many resilience initiatives and investments and commitments that are already underway. So through this multi-stakeholder discussion that's taken place over this long period of time, it's really given some shape to aggregate the global impact that's already there happening in urban resilience. So I think that alone is going to be quite a powerful message that will be coming out of COP21, because many people, perhaps even the most important stakeholders attending COP21 at national level, government decision makers, member states, might not be fully aware of the incredible momentum that there already exists in this urban resilience space. So if nothing else, the LPA is going to give rise to further awareness of this, and I think, in doing so, create more interest in local government's role, but also an investment in urban resilience. So that said, there are really sort of areas. One is really about scaling up the number of cities that are taking resilience action and climate actions, and with a particular focus on the most rapidly urbanizing areas, which again is really where there's the least capacity at the moment to meet this new urban growth and demand. So there's also at the same time the most opportunity to meet this new growth and demand in a climate friendly way, in a transformative way that also is inclusive and equitable and addresses other challenges like poverty and informal settlement and slum growth and youth unemployment and health issues and pollution, all of these other areas that are significant threats for rapidly urbanizing areas. A second focus is really going to be exactly on that, how building climate resilience in certain areas, whether it's through infrastructure investment, housing development, whatever it might be, actually builds social cohesion, opens access to employment, education. A lot of the sort of initiatives already underway, and ICLEI is a great example where this exists, and it does throughout the partners in the Medellin collaboration. It really will help to scale up technical assistance, peer-to-peer exchanges. These are things that are mentioned explicitly in the LPAA agenda as a way to build this, foster this sort of broad coalition of resilience initiatives around the world that address these multiple challenges that rapidly urbanizing areas are facing. And of course, the third part is of course last but never the least is around finance, and this is about opening access to sustainable finance for cities and regions. So how do you connect the work that all of these organizations and initiatives are undertaking to help cities develop strategic resilience action plans? How do you connect those to actual implementation, to actual investments on the ground? And so I think if there's one particular positive outcome from COP21 within this, under this LPA umbrella, it will be more of a recognition of the need to connect these plans to action and opening up different pathways of finance for that to happen. Next slide, please. So here's just a couple of events that are taking place. There's on the 2nd of December, the Dutch government is hosting an event on urban resilience. This is inside the Blue Zone. It's quite a hopefully a very high-level event. The mayor of Paris has been invited to present a keynote, particularly in light of the recent tragedy in the city, and talk about what it really means to be a resilient city. As you can see from the speakers there, it's very heavily focused on financing resilience. So again, connecting back to one of the ambitions for the LPAA group, we hope that one of the outcomes from this session will in fact be a pathway that takes the urban resilience conversation from Paris and next stop toward the World Economic Forum in Davos in January of 2016, and then indeed to other 2016 events that are also quite important on the urban agenda. The launch of the Cities Alliance, new joint work program on resilient cities, being hosted in the TAP Pavilion on the 8th of December, discuss a bit more about the focus areas of this alliance. It's a 3-year program going through 2017 with an initial grant window there you can see. And we already have some deliverables from our group that we'll be launching, in fact, at COP21 during this session. One is a local government's pocket guide to resilience, and the other is an online platform that brings together some of the different resilience tools and diagnostics and assessments that are available to cities that are really all of which aim in one way or another to help cities to identify their greatest needs and prioritize areas for action and investment. Next slide, please. On the 5th of December, we have it's more of a technical session, I suppose. It's really to talk about some of the resilience tools and strategies that are available to cities, some of which, or many of which, will be featured on this new online platform that I presented. And I think after this webinar call, we'll probably be sending around more details about these different sessions and updated times and locations, if any of that has changed. But we're happy to share more with the group and hopefully have your participation. Next slide. So I mentioned, potential outcome from Paris in the context of local government's role in the implementation of these post-2015 agendas and frameworks. We take this conversation to a different audience, perhaps one that really hasn't been engaged as much as could have been in the past, and that's the World Economic Forum in Davos. The World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul in May is another huge milestone event as the humanitarian community looks to build resilience into its response so that the cycle of crisis and response can be improved, and the interventions in those cycles can be improved. And then, of course, Habitat 3 taking place in Quito, Ecuador in October 2016, where it's hoped that there will be adopted by member states a new urban agenda that will focus on many of these issues we've just discussed here. Again, local governments have a key role in the implementation of the post-2015 frameworks, ensuring continuity of resilience efforts and all of the targets that are coming out of this year and next. If there's one hopeful outcome from Paris, it will be this recognition or reinforced recognition of local government's role. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patricia, for this very interesting presentation.
Hello.
Apologies, we're experiencing some technical problems, but now we're back. Good. Okay, so thank you, Patricia, again. A reminder to all attendees, you may type in any questions you have for the presenters during the presentations, and we will read them out at the end. Now we will move on to our second speaker, Antoine Faye, who is the Chief Resilience Officer and Advisor to the Mayor of Dakar. Before being selected as their Chief Resilience Officer, Antoine served as the West Africa Regional Coordinator for the USAID-managed Regional Clean Energy Investment Initiative. And before that, he advised the Senegalese Ministry of Renewable Energy in matters of international affairs, climate change, and financing mechanisms. Today, he will present Dakar's adaptation and resilience plans and briefly discuss the importance of local action at the COP and on what would be a positive or meaningful outcome from the Paris negotiations for the city of Dakar. Antoine, please go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and it's my pleasure being with you at this webinar that I think opened the series of 2015. for resident city with ICLEI. The good things, being the last speaker, is everyone else has already said what we want to know. So I'm not going to repeat what my friend Yunus said and what Ms. Patricia just expressed. What I'm trying to do is to talk about how local action in the global response to addressing climate change could be meaningful. And that's what I call the Dakar path toward a resilient city. If you look at the picture in front of you, Dakar is really a booming and developing city. But there is a context that I want to bring to you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Here is Dakar Metropolitan area in context. It's the capital city of Senegal, Senegal being a country in West Africa. In fact, it is the most westernmost tip of Africa. Dakar has some specific characteristics. It's a peninsula by saying that it's surrounded by the Ocean Atlantic from the north, from the south, and from the west, and has only one single point exit and entry going toward east on the countryside of Senegal. And this is really something that is going to pose problem at any time. Dakar actually houses 4 million inhabitants, the Metropolitan. It is only 0.3% of the Senegalese territory, has an urban density of 50,000 people per square kilometer, which is really very high, with a growth rate of that population of 2.5% per year. The urbanization rate of the city is going very fast, 97.2%. And as in many countries in Africa, this is the single city that hosts 90% of the businesses and 87% of the job of the entire country. What that translates to an exponential growth. It translates to a paradoxical movement of the more you bettering the city, and the more you attracting people from the rural area. So enormous migrant stream from the countryside have been added to ever-changing environmental conditions that are global. All of that has resulted in various challenges that the city is facing. In fact, the city and its 19 districts suffer from a significant socio-ecological disequilibrium. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. No, come back a little bit to the slide previous to this one. Okay, here what we have here is the implication for city, what climate change is really doing actually that implicates city. This is some key finding that we took out of the IPCC 5th assessment report. Number one, many emerging climate change risks are concentrated in urban area. That's for sure, that we know. Number two, climate change impact on city are increasing. Number three, the world urban population is forecast almost to double by 2050, increasing the number of people and assets that will be exposed to climate change risk. Number four, the steps that build resilience and enable sustainable development in urban area can accelerate successful climate change adaptation globally. Here I have to highlight that since 1950, the development paradigm was always directed toward the rural area. And that doesn't mean that people at the rural area will stay there. So now it's time to look about how we can really work on the urban area. And then the IPCC say that the greatest potential for mitigating greenhouse gas emission may lie in rapidly developing cities in industrialized countries. That's the only cause of that is because Dakar is probably consuming 60% of all the electricity that is produced in Senegal. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, of course, Dakar is affected by climate change. It's the way it's built, it's the geography where Dakar is located, but it's also due to a real increase of precipitation and a city that is really congested and using some I don't think it's correct to say it, but that's the reality. Dakar has more individual cars than any city in West Africa. So that vulnerability is dependent by the coastal erosion that we're facing now, by flooding and air pollution. The overpopulation resulting in construction in non-buildable area has created slum, and within the slum we have a real problem of water management. It might be dirty water that is not going to the sewage. It might be storm water that we cannot evacuate, and all of that make the sanitation, the status of the sanitation of the city very precarious. So what if we add all of these causes? They are exacerbated by the fact that the city administration doesn't have a frame of reference to deal with environmental issue, risk management, and overall, they even don't have an overall understanding of the threat of climate change. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. To tell the truth, Dakar didn't really sit down and waiting for someone to do something for it. So the administration was trying to take some solution. On the short term, it's very difficult because climate change issue and policy are always conceived at the national level. So there is no way that the local government can really do something. But some action might have benefited Dakar. If you look at the picture on your right, this is a stormwater management water retention basin that has at least decreased the fact that some human establishment has been flooded since 2005. But we have also to call upon the strategic plan that we call Dakar 2025 that the city has already produced. It was not really a climate change oriented plan, but it includes the creation of a secondary pole to decongestion the center of the city and bring some other business in the outskirts of the city. So this is what we call Derkle Haria La Liberty. The DKL have some feature by trying to undergo some practice of urbanism and city restoration. We visit some local action focusing on assisting flood-prone district. These, I think we can consider them as adaptation solution feature, but that's only for the short term. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the fact. When we understood that resilience, the idea of resilience, is gaining ground in urban policy circle, and I think Ms. Patricia did very well explain it. And we try in Dakar to apply to be a member of the 100 Resilient Cities, which is pioneered by the Rockefeller Foundation. We were lucky. We've been chosen in December 2013, and this is where the position of the Chief Resilience Officer has been created and then come on board. Coming on board, we have had to elaborate a strategy of resilience, and elaborating the strategy of resilience did force us to look beyond what was really there and try to have a vision, a long-term vision. in that long-term vision, what we did is we knew that we're not going to success in nothing if we don't find a defining factor. And that defining factor was, of course, climate change. So why is it climate change a defining factor? Because we want to make sure that any significant decision on planning, on land use, and major investment project should now anticipate the effect from climate change so that its interaction with urban development does not worsen the pattern of social marginalization. Because what is going on here is you might be having good sewage system for 50,000 people, and then you find yourself in 2 or 3 years that 50,000 people come to be 200,000. If you didn't calibrate your sewage system in a way that is going with your exponential population growth, it's not going to sustain what you're doing. So it doesn't matter you have enough precipitation or not. If the population increase very fast and the infrastructure is not calibrated at that level, then it's not going to sustain it. So we base our strategy on 3 dimensions. 1 is urbanism and mobility, 2 is water, health, and sanitation, and 3 is energy access and its efficient use. By those dimensions, what we mean is if we want to have a good urbanism and mobility, the 2 should be going together, and we should ensure and promote more effective distribution of city function across the whole surface of the city in order to support the implementation of urban plan, because it's not really effective to planning and not really implementing them. That might facilitate economic development and efficient mobility. Water, health, and sanitation is a nexus that if you don't really manage it very well, you might find yourself in an endpoint where you have your quality of life is going to decrease. So we will, in Dakar, we find that the dimension is very important. So we will try to strengthen the entry point in the water, waste and health. Energy access and its efficient use. Energy for the whole economy is everything, but the problem is not really to produce energy. The problem is to use it efficiently. So we will try to create awareness by doing some pilot project with the city infrastructure to use better energy and reduce the bill of our electricity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, but to do all of that, to go into resilience, to go into adaptation, to try to prepare Dakar for climate change effect, we need to know how local government could integrate the global fight against climate change. As we already hear from Yunus, and all of us know that the conference of the party is being held under the auspice of the UNFCCC, and it's only national government that have been pursuing a climate change governance, trying to address the issue on the international stage. Of course, what does it mean? That means that city will always have will always face the challenge in effectively responding to problems associated with climate change, because the decisions that are taken at the international stage does not really translate to project or to action to the local government. So it's very difficult for cities or any other local government to be able to, by itself, to be able to take action. Fortunately, at this COP21 in Paris, we really believe that the global commitment will involve local government and authority that are already taking action within partnership and initiative for local climate around the world. Because we want to take the word of Laurent Fabius, the president of COP21, who has affirmed that France is mobilizing non-state actors around an agenda of solution known as the Lima Paris Action Agenda. And I think Ms. Patricia has spoke a little bit about that. In its capacity of the focal point of the LGMA, we know that ICLEI has carried out local government climate roadmap toward every COP since Bali 2007. And Yunus is there. He's not gonna he's gonna confirm what I'm saying. But Senegal, with its national delegation, and by the way, the city of Dakar has always supported that approach. Why we are supporting that approach? Because we find out in Senegal that city often deliver national climate action. They can strengthen and increase ambition. They are well placed to identify local needs and exploit synergy, and they have greater opportunity for policy opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is the best occasion ever to create an advocacy base for local government and municipal authority constituency. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As far as Dakar is concerned, a meaningful outcome from COP21 should be that we expect that the COP21 will certainly be the climate conference that will define best the trajectory of a new global commitment. We have been monitoring that since Doha. We think that since Durban, we think that the commitment that has been made in Durban will prevail, and that we're going to have a new agreement, an agreement that bring everyone on board with good ambition. In addition to that, we hope that more flexible, more cost-effective, and more participatory approach needed to confront climate change will be put in place. That means that cities and local government will be associated in the possibility and the solution. The other things is we are waiting for this negotiation to establish a dynamic framework that encourages policy and dialogue at all levels of government that could help to answer questions such as how can municipal leaders participate in negotiation as actor, contributor, and decision maker? How can they support joint planning at the local level? What funding mechanisms allow cities to adapt to climate change? Because this is important. It doesn't matter how good people will accept or recognize our action. If we don't have the means to implement them, it's not going to serve really nothing. And Yunus, I think we have a good job. We have a great job to go, and we will try to support you as well as. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Antoine, so much. I just wanted to let you know that there was a bit of a delay in the screen, so we were trying to coordinate that. So sorry. Thank you very much for the great presentation. As you've heard, there are various possible outcomes in terms of the actual agreement and what the potential outcomes could be in terms of resilience and loss and damage. This is a global gathering of states and non-state actors to showcase and drive momentum for climate change action, including local action. So the resilience outcomes of Paris will go beyond the official agreements, with many different side events and initiatives being launched during COP. So for those who are interested to attend or follow these developments, we'd like to take a minute to highlight a few of this here and show where you can find more information on the COP schedule. You can see on this slide we have listed some relevant events taking place at the Blue Zone and other locations. You can find latest information on the official UNFCCC website. As you can see here, we are also sending you the links for the websites. Yes, the relevant link for the UNFCCC website, and also for the Cities and Regions Pavilion website, which is, I'm going to walk you through that now. Apologies, something is not working right on my end. So this is the website, as you can see here. And this is where we can have the program, view the program broken down by day. I hope you can see this now. We had some problems before. So this is the program broken down by day and also week, as you see here. I think Patricia and Yunus and also Antoine covered some of those events already. I can just show you indicatively that on the 2nd of December we have here the Climate Resilience and Disaster Risk Management in Asian Cities, organized by OECD and GIZ. And if you click on it, there's most of the events have the session descriptions already. Also on the 2nd, which is the Resilience Day, there are several other events. Mainly we have, yes, this was on the 2nd, I'm sorry. And on the 5th, we have the tools session that Patricia already covered. We would like to say that this is the draft program. We are updating today to refer to the new schedule. This will be, for instance, this session will be an hour later. So please keep in contact with this and check this program because it's updated. It's the latest here right now, and it's updated by day. Also on the 3rd, on the 2nd week, we have the day 8, Tuesday 8th of December. There it is the Cities Day, and on this day we have the launch, as Patricia already mentioned, the launch of the Cities Alliance Joint Work Program on the schedule, so you can retrieve information here. Okay. And we are sending you the links to those schedules as well. So we will now move to a brief Q&A session with the questions we have gathered so far. Please type in questions if you still have them and indicate to who the questions are referring to. So to start off here, we have a question from Omar Siddiq from the Cities Alliance Secretariat, who is asking Trisha and Yunus, what concrete opportunities do you think COP21 offers for Habitat 3 and the new urban agenda? Or is this the other way around? Would you like to answer, Patricia? Patricia, are you with us?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
sorry.
I can hear you well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hi, Omar. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think there is a concrete opportunity in terms of well, I think so, again reinforcing the role of local governments and the importance of cities, given the anticipated growth in cities, of implementing a post-2015 agenda. So, having further support for the new urban agenda and the components of this, good urban planning and design, accessing finance for implementation to implement good urban plans and designs, strengthening governance structures, these key pillars of the new urban agenda. I think anything that can reinforce these messages coming out of COP21, and that's consistent with the messages we've already seen from other post-2015 frameworks in Sendai and the SDGs, would be very positive.
Thank you, Patricia. Yunus, would you like to also respond, or has Patricia covered everything?
Well, I would echo Patricia, just to differentiate the processes between these two. Habitat 3 is a conference that is coming only every 20 years, and we don't know whether there will be Habitat 4, because now the global governance is structured around high-level political forum and Sustainable Development Summit. But the importance of the climate is that if we cannot guarantee a low carbon and climate resilient world, neither the Sustainable Development Goals nor the new urban agenda will fulfill its vision. Therefore, it's both, and they will feed each other. The one thing that we are happy is that for 25 years or so, UNFCCC was not making any vision to engage stakeholders at all levels, and hopefully in Paris this will be and come to an end. So, and this will definitely provide a positive impact to the Habitat 3, we hope.
Thank you, Yunus. We have another question from Iro Benesaya towards Antoine. She is asking, is the city government collaborating and supporting with small local initiatives of the civil society? And if yes, in what form and way? Antoine?
Yes, yes, definitely. The city administration is trying to bring everybody on board, and this strategy of resilience is not really about the administration; it's about the residents and citizens of Dakar. So we have tried to be more inclusive even than the administration and more participatory, because we needed to produce a preliminary risk of preliminary resilience assessment. You cannot have something like that if you don't approach the stakeholder and try to get their perception by asking a series of questions. How did they feel what the city is really providing? On the other hand, Senegal has been, and Dakar is known for being a very civil society prone, let's say, cities. And we collaborating. I can give you an example with ENDA. ENDA has come with the concept of DECLIC. DECLIC is what they call citizen and climate change initiative. So we collaborating with them to bring the issue on right down to the citizen, make awareness of what climate change is, how is it affecting them, because they always hearing people going in meetings, coming back and not seeing exactly what has been done. So we're trying to make sure that citizens are informed, they know exactly what is going on, and if we ask to come into type of action, they will answer that.
Thank you, Antoine. We have spilled over a little bit in time, so we would like to, we have actually a representative from Paris, Ian Francois, who would like to also have a little bit of time to talk about Paris and what is going to happen in their city in just 1 week from now. So Ian, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks Evgenia and Yunus from Patricia and Antoine for the clear discussion and presentation. It was very useful for everybody, I think. First of all, we are very, very pleased and excited to receive you next week, I hope, in COP21 in very important high level of security and safety. I can confirm that for you in these difficult moments. For City of Paris, maybe it would be useful to share with everybody sooner. We hope to have the translation in English for the COP21, but in last September, the City Council of Paris adopted its first strategy adaptation strategy or roadmap after adopting a climate plan more about mitigation. City Council adopts the first adaptation strategy with very concrete actions for the next 5 or 10 years for the city for tackling climate change. But for the city, as Paris, very dense and mineral city, is how to reduce the impact of urban heat islands. It's too late to detail all the strategy, but it will be a pleasure to share maybe in the next webinar with you all the adaptation strategy, and I hope for the COP21 or maybe in January we will have it in English to share with everybody. So it was only what I wanted to say. I will be happy to meet you next week or next 2 weeks, and specifically if your mayor can come for the climate summit for local leaders on the 4th on December. And thanks for ICLEI for all your organization and so on.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much for this very good welcome to your city, basically. Thank you. As we have come to the end of our time, I would like to conclude our webinar and give a warm thank you to Yunus, Patricia, Antoine, and Ian for sharing their thoughts and experiences with us today and giving us an overview of the resilience agenda at the upcoming COP, and to all of you for attending and engaging with us in the discussion. We have been recording this webinar and it will be made available on our Resilient Cities series website shortly, together with the presentations, further resources, and link for your information. There, you can also check forthcoming webinars as well as past webinar recordings and download relevant material. For anyone who's interested in the general COP21 agenda of local and subnational governments, I would like to recommend watching Yunus's webinar on the 17th of November. The recording is also available at the official cities and regions website that I have showed you. Lastly, I would like to remind you about the open call for contributions for next year. For next year's Resilient Cities Congress, which will be held 6th to 8th of July 2016 in Bonn, Germany. The call closes on January 8th, and one of the Congress themes of Resilient Cities 2016 includes tracking local progress and the implementation of global frameworks, including the Sendai Framework, the SDGs, and the Prospective Climate Agreement, as well as the UN Habitat Agreement to Be. With that, I would like to conclude our webinar and thank you all for joining us, and have a good rest of the day and a productive week before COP21. Thank you.